getting started with ClassFlow webinar, and we're happy to have you here, so thank you for attending. And here we go. So today, with getting started with ClassFlow, we're going to take a look at how to navigate the site. You may or may not be familiar with the ClassFlow website, so I'd like to show you around. We're going to take a look at how you can connect your students and deliver content to them. Also, I want to show you some places that you can find pre-made resources, and lastly, how to get help and support for when you have questions. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Courtney Salazar, and I'm a ClassFlow consultant with Promethean, and I have the good pleasure of helping ClassFlow users all over the Western U.S., and I'm coming to you today from Colorado. Prior to being on the ClassFlow team, I myself was a classroom teacher for 9 years. I taught a combination of high school and middle school English language arts. And today I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Ed O'Donnell. Ed is going to be kind of working behind the scenes, and he will be answering any questions that you have. So we know that right now you're muted, but if you have questions, please do not hesitate to pose them in the chat or the Q&A windows, and Ed will help me answer those, and I'll pause from time to time and just check in with him and see what types of questions are coming through. So again, we want to thank you for being here, and let's begin. So what is ClassFlow? I don't want to assume that you already know what it is, so let me just take a moment to explain a little bit about ClassFlow. So ClassFlow is a free interactive lesson delivery system for the modern classroom, and it's web-based or cloud-based, meaning that you can use ClassFlow with any devices with internet access. So if you have laptops or iPads, even smartphones, Chromebooks, any devices that can connect to the internet, you and your students can use ClassFlow, which is really terrific. And it's also device agnostic, which I was just alluding to, meaning you can use any devices with it. And it really allows for a great deal of engagement with your students, interactivity. It can be very collaborative, and students really love it. So I'm excited to show you some of my favorite features of ClassFlow today. And we're going to give you an overview on how to get started. Now, we're going to be covering a lot of information today, but no worries if you forget something or I just touch on something and then kind of keep going along. I will also be showing you places where you can get help and support and learn more about any any topic within ClassFlow that you may be curious about. So stay tuned and don't try to worry about absorbing all of it. Hopefully you can just take away a couple of things that you might want to use, and of course I'll show you where you can learn more. Okay, so to get started, I want to go ahead, I'm going to exit out of this, and I'm actually going to log out of my account, even though I'm currently logged in. If I want to show you the site, I think it makes sense for us to start in a logged out state. So now my URL is a little bit different because I'm using a demo account right now, but you would go to classflow.co.uk, and there you can, oh, thank you, wonderful. I see that Janice has posted that in the chat. Thank you, Janice. So that is where you can acquire your own free ClassFlow account, and you can register here. So I already have a ClassFlow account. I'm going to show you how I can log in. So when I'm taken to this screen, I will click Login as Teacher, and it has saved my credentials here, and I will log in. Okay, so this is our ClassFlow homepage, and this seems like the perfect place to start, and I want to show you around. And these are our 5 quick access buttons. These are 5 areas of ClassFlow that our educators and users were using the most frequently, so it made a lot of sense just to put them here on the homepage. So we have Instant Whiteboard, starting a quick poll, which polling is one of my favorite parts of ClassFlow, and we will dig into that here shortly. You can also create your own original lessons, activities, and assessments. So these are all things that you can do here on the home page. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. And you can see we have some top picks for Marketplace. I'll tell you what Marketplace is. You may be scratching your head and wondering, what is Marketplace? Stay tuned. And here we have a few of our other products. And all right, so I want to go ahead and get started by connecting you as students. And I want to encourage you to play along a little bit today just so you can see the interactivity of ClassFlow from the teacher side and the student side. So I will be asking you to toggle back and forth between perhaps two separate tabs or two separate windows from time to time. So sometimes you'll be watching this WebEx screen and seeing my screen, and other times I'll be having you respond as a student on a separate screen. So I will try to be really mindful about directing you back and forth, but if you get lost or if I'm going too quickly, please just let us know in the chat or Q&A. I can get very excited about ClassFlow sometimes, so if I am going too quickly, please just holler. So to connect to my students, I'm going to go over here on the right-hand side and click Open Class. Now, Open Class is a very quick and easy way to get your students connected. And so I will have my students, so if you could please, in a separate tab or a separate window perhaps in your browser, if you could please go to this URL, and Ed, if you could please throw that in the chat window for us so users or participants can grab it, please. This is demo.classflow.com/join/QQBRJ. So this last bit here, these last 5 digits, this is my open class code. Now your open class code that students will use will be different. So every user has a class code unique unto themselves, and so your students can just go to this URL and connect with your class. Now once you're there at this, once you've gone to this website, oh, welcome. All right, Janice here too. Thank you for joining. Once you go to that website, it will prompt you to enter your name and then to select Join Class. And I can see I have 2 students connected right now, so thank you for playing along with me, Jan and Ed. So this is an easy way to get your students connected. We will take a look at other ways that you can connect students and how you can create your own classes here in just a little while, so stay tuned. But Open Class is always going to be available to you up here in the top right corner of your home page. And you'll notice here, even when I don't have that connection displayed, that I can tell how many students I have. Now on your student screen, when you've just connected, you are most likely, I hope, you're seeing these kind of just cascading landscape images, and these are just meant to be kind of scenic, non-obtrusive pictures. This is what your students will see when they connect. So it's really meant to redirect their attention back to you, the teacher, or back to the front of the classroom display. So that's just what the students are seeing until you deliberately send some content out to them or ask them a question using polling. All right, so now if you will please join me back over on the WebEx screen so you can see what I'm up to over here on my teacher account. Okay, I want to show you one of the things I really like to show new ClassFlow users, and it's here on the home page. It's actually our very first little quick access bubble, and it's called Instant Whiteboard. So I'm going to go ahead and select Instant Whiteboard. Now, I know anytime that you're learning a new educational platform or a new app or some kind of new technology with your class, it can be overwhelming. It can be a little bit daunting. And so I like to always point out to new users ways that they can start using ClassFlow and sort of break into it a little bit and just get a taste for it. And I think that Instant Whiteboard is one of the best ways to do that. So you'll notice here I have a nice big blank canvas, and I have some tools here along the bottom. So I know a lot of teachers that like to use the Instant Whiteboard for a warm-up. I don't know if that term translates to the UK, but it's kind of the beginning of the class type activity, something you do to get students engaged and to get their brains turned on and warmed up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and select my pen tool here. Oh, good. All right. Thanks for the validation, Janice. I like it. All right. So, oh, and excuse me because I'm using a mouse to write this. So we're going to get started with a warm-up, and you'll notice I have a whole array of different colors for pens, and I can change the line thickness here, the drawing style, so I can draw some nice straight lines, and even I can use a very fine pen, which I think of more as like a pencil or a highlighter. So a lot of different tools you can use to get started and write. And maybe I want to go ahead and I'm going to add another card. Now we call these cards in ClassFlow. I know different programs will call them pages or slides, but we call them cards. So to add another card, actually first I should select my selector tool so I don't start drawing all over everything. So I can go here to toggle carousel, and now I'm going to see all of the cards within my Instant Whiteboard lesson accruing here at the bottom. So let me add another card. All right. I want to add one of our tools on here. And we have a number of different tools that you can use, and I'll just start with a ruler. So with this ruler, you'll be able to spin this around and use it to measure, and you can even make it longer if you'd like. And so let me also go back to, let's see, let's draw a purple line. I'm going to draw a nice straight one. Okay, so I've got a line, I've got my ruler, and now I have two students connected. I'm actually going to start a poll. So I want to send this out to you, and I will send it as a, how about a word seed poll? I would love for you, please. Now you should be receiving this on your student screen, so if you'll go ahead and click back to that student screen, if you could please tell me how many centimeters this line is. How long is this line? And then once you have input your response, be sure to go ahead and click that blue submit button down in the right-hand corner. Okay, now I can see these responses coming in live. I can see here I'm still waiting on a student as well. Oh, all right, and everyone has responded. Okay, so we've got, wow, some vastly different responses here. This might require a bit of reteaching, or let's see here. Okay, so these responses, with my poll responses, I can connect these. And I can even change the color. So maybe if then I want to have my students vote, and I could even open another poll. I could start another poll from here, and we could vote on, as a class, which response is more correct. So I can poll from within a poll, which is pretty exciting. I'm actually going to go ahead and stop this poll. So polling is a great way to not only engage your students, but to really set that expectation that every student's going to respond. And for those of us who have been in the classroom, we know that there are always going to be those children who are not the types to raise their hand or are a little reluctant to respond. And so I think another thing that's great about ClassFlow polling is that these results, you may have noticed, come in anonymously. So I can always opt to show names, or I can hide the name. So because it's default set to respond anonymously, a lot of students feel more comfortable responding if they know that their name will not be associated with their answer. So that's just a little bit of polling that I wanted to show you there. Okay, and even if I just have something that I want to send out to students, oh, these results are being saved on a card here. I do want to point that out, so I can always come back to that. I could go back to this original card, and maybe I just want to send this out to you. I could also even send this card to all of you, or I could even differentiate, which I really like that ClassFlow allows me to select particular students or groups of students to send things to. So along with polling from Instant Whiteboard, I could even just simply send you that card. Maybe I just want you to practice measuring and playing around with the ruler, but I don't necessarily need a response from you. So I can send things, and I can also engage my students with polling. So many options here in the Instant Whiteboard. Now for the sake of time, I am going to exit our Instant Whiteboard session, and I can do that by clicking these three lines over here. I'm always calling it the hamburger. My colleagues would prefer that I use the term ClassFlow menu, but I love food, so I'm always thinking of that as a hamburger. So, all right, I'm going to click exit, and I will be prompted to see if I want to save this Instant Whiteboard session. So I'll have the option to save it as a lesson, and I'll go ahead and save it just to show you where that ends up a little bit later. So maybe you're doing a really stellar warm-up with your students, and you're excited to use that later on in class, or maybe the next day or next week. You can always save that session, and then you can go back to that later. Okay, so here we are again on the home page. Now, the other option, the second option here, is to start a quick poll. So I love that I can begin a poll with my students here on the home page. I'm actually going to use a creative response poll here. And I would love to learn from you. And again, you'll have to click back to your student screen here in just a moment, please. And if you could tell me where you live and what is the best thing about that place. Oh no, I think I've sometimes when I share my screen, it slows my computer down a little bit here. Let's see. Okay, so again, I'm issuing you a creative poll. Now, creative poll is a fun one because you'll see that your students have a whole bunch of tools to use. They have a text tool, a pen tool. All right. I think my webinar might be slowing down my computer here a little bit. I'm actually just going to try to refresh this. Thank you for your patience. Please bear with me. Let me try to log in once more. So polling can be really great. I love that I can start it from the home page of my, here we are. Okay, so I can start it with my students straight away, and I don't have to necessarily be in a lesson yet. Okay. So as soon as my students walk into class, I can pose a question to them, and they're already connected, and they're responding, and we're getting started right off the bat without having to go and find a lesson and use it like that. So polling can be very instantaneous. Okay. I think this sharing my screen is just slowing me down. Okay, let me maybe try that as a different type of poll, perhaps. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Okay, well, maybe I'll send that instead of just a text poll, and you can just tell me where you live and what is the best thing about living there. Okay, well, you may be getting a text box on your screen to type an answer. Aha, okay, success. Thanks everyone for sticking it out here. So again, we're looking for, and you'll notice that we don't have a card up here because I'm just posing that question verbally. I don't have a card from my lesson to show you at the top here. But if you could tell me where you live and what is the best thing about living in that place. Oh no, I wonder if it's booted. Looks like it's booted my students out. Ed is here. All right, let me try that once more here. Okay, we don't need to save that session. Okay, third time's the charm. And a text poll, here we go. Woohoo! This looks successful. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to chalk that up to user error and me not having enough caffeine so far this morning. I know it's afternoon where you are, but it's still morning here for me, so I appreciate you staying with me. But so you can poll students from the home page as well. I think that's a really terrific feature. And all right, we've got answers coming in. Again, they're responding anonymously, so I don't know who this is. I have no idea who this could be. Actually, I'm kidding. I know that's my colleague Ed. All right, and Ed has responded. Oh, and we've got just outside of Edinburgh. All right, love the countryside. Oh, that sounds beautiful. I imagine that you live in one of the places that are in those the holding screen there from the ClassFlow, the landscape images is what I'm envisioning of where you live. So wonderful. And these results, I didn't mention this before, but these results are being saved automatically. So I can always use polling with my students and return to these results later on. So if you're using it perhaps as an exit ticket or to check for understanding, and you definitely want to see what the students are saying in real time, but then you would love to dig into that data a little bit later on, you can always go and look at those answers in more detail whenever you'd like, because ClassFlow is saving these responses. So thank you both for playing along. I will go ahead and exit out, and I will not save this one, although those results are saving, but I won't save it as an instant whiteboard session. Okay, so now we're back here on the home page. Let me just briefly kind of run through these bits of the site, which we have not touched on yet. So over here, we have, Before I go further, I do want to point out something that I really, really encourage new users and folks who are new to ClassFlow to check out, and that's right up here. So let's go ahead and proceed with this. Up here on the right-hand corner of your screen, and if you're still on your student screen, if you'll please come back now to the to the WebEx screen so you can watch what I'm doing. And this is our area for help and support. So if I mention something today that you are unclear on or unsure about, this is a great place for you to find more information. So here in this drop-down menu, if I click on that little triangle, I have a few options. So first of all, if I select Help, this will take me to our library full of help articles. And we have a whole team at ClassFlow who really spends a lot of time and energy putting together some very helpful and succinct articles that will help you on any number of topics. And you can search here, or you can also search for something here. So maybe polling was something that intrigued you and you'd like to learn more about polling. Here you have a whole number of results about polling, and these are helpful little articles. Okay, let me go back now to that drop-down menu. So that was help. Now, these little icons, this denotes a video, and what's really neat is that ClassFlow can determine where you are on the site, and it will actually propose videos to you related to where you are. So if I'm in Marketplace, which I know we have not explored yet, but when I'm in Marketplace, it will suggest to me videos related to Marketplace. But if I'm under the Classes tab, and I click that little drop-down arrow, it will propose to me videos related to classes. So I really like that ClassFlow tries to intuit what I'm wondering about and then supply me with those answers. Now, these videos, I should be sure to mention that they are short. They're maybe 45 seconds to 1 minute long, and they're very helpful. And we put a lot of time and effort into making these videos just the best that they can be. So please check out these videos along with our articles. And then lastly, if you ever just have a question that you want to get a quick answer to, or you just really want to speak to a real person, if you select on this question mark here, this is our interactive help. And you can see that I have utilized it a bunch, but down at the bottom here, if I click New Conversation, now I know that these are avatars, but they are representative of real people, and they span a whole bunch of different time zones, and in fact, Wendy is in the UK, so you definitely have some support over there. Don't worry. And you could pose a question to them. How do I get my students connected? How do I send polls? Something along those lines. And their response time is really fantastic, usually less than 5 minutes. And even if you need to leave your computer, let's say that you pose a question, but then you need to get to a meeting or you have a class starting and you can't really sit around and wait for their response will also go to your email inbox. So you're guaranteed to get help, and they are just wonderful. I can't say enough good things about our support team. So that's how you can learn more about ClassFlow and get help and support. All right, I want to pause here before we dig into the Classes tab and just check in with Ed and see if there are any questions coming through. Ed?
Hey, Courtney. No questions as of yet, but just as a reminder to everybody this afternoon, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat window or the Q&A, and we will work on getting you an answer.
Super. Okay, thanks, Ed. Well, we will proceed. So we've looked at the home page. I've shown you help and support, and now I'd like to show you the Classes tab. So I was able to connect my students, with OpenClass today. And OpenClass will always be available to you, but there are actually more features and more functionality available if you set up your own classes within ClassFlow. And as you start digging into ClassFlow more, you may find that that's something that you want to do. You want to get your students into rostered classes. So you can see over here I have a few different classes, and if I select Add a Class, I'm going to have a few options. I did also want to show you, oh my goodness, that's not what I was trying to show you. I wanted to show you too, I don't have this button right here, but if you have, I'm going to select Add a Class. If you have, and right now I'm in my demo site, so it's not available to me. However, if you're just on classflow.co.uk, you will also be able to import your Google Classroom rosters if that's something that you've been utilizing with your students. So my apologies for not being able to show that right now, but you should have that as an option as well when you go to Add a Class. So you will find that when you go to create a new class, you have two different options. You can make a student-generated class, which is our most popular option, or a teacher-generated class. And the difference with those is that you'll have more functionality available to you with the student-generated class. And what this means is that your students will also have their own ClassFlow accounts, and that will make it very easy for them to log into their accounts and then very quickly select which class section they're in and join your class. So they will not have to go to a URL and type in their name and so on and so forth if you use the student-generated class. It really simplifies connecting your students. A teacher-generated class may be more appropriate for younger grade levels. This is where a teacher would manually input his or her students into the roster. And then their connection process would be just a tiny bit different than this one. So you have some options available to you. And then once you have a class, I'll go ahead and select one of mine here. Let's do astronomy class. And then once you've created a class, and again, this is not something that you have to do within ClassFlow. It's not mandatory, completely personal preference, but I did just want to show you some of the options available. So you'll have your roster. You'll have all of your students here that are enrolled in your class. Once a student has enrolled, he or she cannot disenroll themselves. You can disenroll them, excuse me, but don't worry. They once they're in, they're with you. They can't leave. So also, every time you deliver a lesson, a poll, an assignment, an assessment, or if you award badges, which I don't know that we'll dig into today, all of these are automatically being saved here under your account. So if you give an assessment or you do some polls with your students, you can always go back and look at that data at your leisure. So that's a really nice feature of classes. Also within classes, you can create groups. And you can add groups, and this will help you differentiate when you're delivering content to students. You can actually push out different materials to different groups of students. So a really nice way to be able to target all of the learners in your class and reach them where they are. Okay, let me just make sure we've said everything here about classes. Oh, I nearly forgot. Okay, let me go back to classes, and I wanted to show you as well. I want to get back to my feed. Let me show you this whole feed. So here in the middle of your classes tab, you also have something that's fairly new to ClassFlow. It's called the feed, and this is a collection of everything you do with students in ClassFlow. So you'll notice when I did those polls with you, that saved right here with my open class. And again, we did a few different polls. And whenever I deliver a lesson, that will be saved. If I was giving a student here some instructions so she could learn how to do the Michael Jackson Thriller dance. So that was a post that I made. So anytime that you do something within ClassFlow, it will be saved in your feed. Now if that starts to get a little bit busy, you can always delete things and clean it up a bit. So you can see you can click that little trash can there. Or bin, and you can delete those. You can also post things deliberately to your students, which I really like. So it can become as communicative and collaborative within your classroom as you want it to be. So I could always tell my students, maybe I just want to send them a little reminder. And this will show up right in the middle of their homepage, their student homepage. Now, I can send things to entire classes. I can send them to multiple sections of classes. I can send posts to individual students or even to groups of students. So I can really reach students in any capacity that I want. I can even attach different resources. So I can add lessons. So this would be a really great thing to send to maybe a student who's been absent for a few classes. Why not just send them the lessons and the activities you've been doing as a class so that they can try to stay up to speed a little bit. You can also link websites. And if I click on this arrow here, I can also select things from my computer. So if I have a PDF or a Word document, other file types, I can always add those here. And you can post videos, websites, audio files, any file type that ClassFlow supports, which is a lot. And you can post those to, again, classes or groups of students or even just single individual students. So I will go ahead and post this reminder. And this will be showing up for my students in my astronomy class right on their homepage. Excuse me. So that's just a little bit about the feed and about the classes tab. I'm going to move right on to resources here. This is our next tab here in the site. And resources is the area for ClassFlow, for everything in ClassFlow to be stored in one place. So this is where you can add, oh, sorry, I was just seeing something in the chat. Oh, good. If you're not able to hear me, please just let me know and we'll do something to fix the audio. Or it could just mean I have a bit of a sore throat, so sorry about that. So within the resources, this is where all of your things are going to be housed. So your lessons, your assessments, activities, any images that you have, videos that you've brought into your ClassFlow account, audio files, you can put websites in here, PDFs, Word documents, all manner of things. And this is where not only will they be housed, but you can also create new materials in ClassFlow. So again, this is under resources. And if this part starts to get a little busy for you, I am kind of a nut about organizing things. Fear not, you can always create folders. I'm going to expand, and you'll see here I have tons of folders. You can even create subfolders, and this can help you stay organized with all of your resources that you love to use with your students. So you can see here for my astronomy class in Unit 1, I have all different file types. I've got a PDF, I have a website about the solar system, an assessment, I've got a lesson, I have images. So within a folder, you can put as many different resources as you'd like to help yourself stay organized. Okay, let's see here. So I also wanted to show you, this is where you can create new things. So I could go ahead and make a new folder. So maybe I want to make a folder, I'm glad that I did that. That was inadvertent, but you'll notice when you go to click and make a new folder, it will make that folder underneath whichever original folder is selected. So now it's actually making a subfolder for me under my Unit 1 folder, which was not quite my intention. Let me go ahead and go back to, here we are, my resources. Now I will make a new folder. Okay. I'm glad that happened though, because I've worked with plenty of users who are creating subfolders within subfolders, and then they don't realize that you need to be selected on the top one if you want to just make a basic folder. So maybe I want to make a folder for review games. As my students are reviewing for assessments, I always love to play games with them to get ready. So maybe Jeopardy or Bingo, that kind of a thing. So I can go ahead and create my folder, Review Games. And now within this folder, let's say I have a resource that I want to bring in. I can actually click File Upload, and I'll find that file here. Here we go. This is a PDF. This is a bingo game, and I want to put that right into this folder. And here it is. Didn't take long at all to load. And now I've got that PDF within my Review Games folder. So again, that blue New button and then File Upload, that's how you can get different files here into your ClassFlow account, with the exception of a few. And I want to just go down to the bottom here and show you that you can actually convert existing PowerPoints, Active Inspire flip charts, and smart notebooks that you already have. So that would be this Convert button down here is how you would bring in those types of resources. But really in ClassFlow, we know that you already have tons of resources that you use with your students and that you love, and you've spent a great deal of time creating these. We do not want you to feel like you have to start from scratch. We want you to be able to keep using those. So please bring them on into your resources. This is the area that you would do that. Okay, so this is also where you can create new things. As you saw, we made a new folder, but you can also create new lessons and activities and so on here in the resources area. You can also link to existing accounts. So you'll notice down here we have Dropbox, Google Drive, and OneDrive, so you can connect with those accounts and continue using the resources that you may have in those different sites or accounts that you already have. So you can link them together, which is just another time-saving tool. All right, before we head into Marketplace, I do want to pause again and just check in with Ed and see if there are any questions coming through.
No further questions.
Okay, sounds good. So let's go to Marketplace. Marketplace is another area that I love to show new ClassFlow users because, just like I was saying, we don't want you to feel like you have to reinvent things or spend a great deal of time creating these brand new, robust ClassFlow lessons. We have a whole library of free resources here for you to use, most of which are free. I just heard the statistic the other day, something like 4.3 million free resources here in the marketplace. So our hope is that you can find something that's pre-made and get started that way with students. And we want you to be able to dig into ClassFlow and have fun with it. And I bet you can find something here that you could use with your class. So here in the marketplace, you can refine your search using these parameters off to the left. So you can search by subject area, grade level, and you can expand that. File format, so CF stands for ClassFlow, so if you're looking for a ClassFlow lesson. Most of the resources here in the marketplace are free. Some are paid, but most are free, and you can decide on some other parameters as well. And Promethean is a global company, so we have all different languages available, and I know that world language teachers appreciate that. And you can also search by keyword. So let's say that I was looking for maybe something about the solar system to use with my students. And all right, this one looks like it might be good. So well, if you're in the marketplace and you find something that intrigues you and you think, maybe I could use that. Once you click on it, you're going to get some more information. So you'll have the title. You'll be able to see who created that and how many have viewed it and downloaded it. You'll have a description. And you can share it with colleagues if you'd like. And then I'm going to keep scrolling down here. If I keep scrolling down, I can see which students this might be most appropriate for. Protected would mean, protected would mean that I would be able to edit this lesson. So if I decide I want to use it, I will actually be able to go in and manually make changes to it to thus customize it to use with my students. If it says yes, it is protected, then that means you could only use it as is. You wouldn't be able to make your own amendments and changes to it. And also I can use these little arrows to click through the lesson and kind of get a sense of what it might contain. And now let's say that I decide, yeah, that seems great. I want to use that with my students. You have a few options. You could deliver it right here to your class, which I think would be very brave just to find something and then use it, but you certainly could. But you can also add it to your resources. So I'm going to click Add to my resources, and depending on how large that file is of that particular resource, some will take longer than others to add to your resources. Now when I go back to resources, and it looks like it's still adding, we'll give it just another moment. I do want to point out to you where these go, because when I was first learning ClassFlow, for some reason I was just not understanding that they would go into a Marketplace folder, so I would keep going back to Marketplace and finding it and downloading it, and then I would go back to resources and I couldn't find it. So I like to use my foolishness as kind of a learning opportunity for when I'm delivering webinars and such. So now when I go back to my resources to find that very lesson that I just located and decided to add from Marketplace, everything that I pull from Marketplace will automatically be put into my Marketplace folder. And as soon as you add even one resource from Marketplace, ClassFlow will automatically generate this Marketplace folder. So here I could select, and there it is. And here's the lesson. So now again, I would be able to edit this lesson, or I could deliver it to my class. So another way that you can deliver content to your students right here. Now I could always decide to copy this to another folder or move it to another folder. If I click here, I could move it to a different place. So that's just a little overview of Marketplace. I hope that you'll be able to play around a little bit more on your own and hopefully find something that you can use with your students. Okay, so just a couple more things that I wanted to share with you today, one of which is called activities. And I just want to briefly touch on activities. And I have one here. Let me actually just look for planets. So activities are very simple and easy to create. Let me actually deliver this. We have 10 different activity types in ClassFlow. I won't really go very in-depth with activities today, but I do want you to just maybe make a little note to look more into activities on your own, because I just can't say enough great things about them. They're easy to make. Students find them super engaging. They love them. And they're really a terrific way to review or practice any content or concepts that you're doing in your class right now. So this could be something that we could play at the front of the class, or I think I still have 2 students connected. I can always send that out. And again here, I could differentiate. I could send different activities to different students. And now I'll send that to you. And you should be receiving that on your student screen. So like I said, there's 10 different types. We have Venn diagrams, we have matching, sequencing, timeline, labeling a diagram, and the list goes on and on. So as you can see, students can just drag and drop these into whichever category. This is called a categorized activity. So they're trying to determine which category these planets would fall into. You may notice too that you can't actually get an answer wrong. If you get one wrong, it will just throw it back into the pool of options there. But it will keep track at the bottom of your screen of how many you get incorrect. And there's a timer there too, and students just get crazy competitive, just insanely competitive with one another to try to be the first to complete an activity. So activities are very fun. They're simple. I mean, this one honestly took me maybe 2 or 3 minutes to create, and that was even as I was importing the pictures to the images to add along with the planets. So activities are really fun. I just wanted to at least mention them, maybe to just pique your interest a little bit, and I hope that you will learn more about activities or maybe explore these more on your own. So really one of my favorite things about ClassFlow. Okay, well, for the sake of time, I'm going to exit out of this activity, and you may be still playing it, but if you'll join me back on the WebEx screen, please. So briefly, I wanted to show you how you can start making your own ClassFlow lesson. I've shown you how you can find existing lessons in the marketplace, but if I want to make a new lesson on my own, I'm going to go to Resources. Again, that's where we make new things. And I will click the blue New button, and I want to create a new lesson. So I just briefly wanted to show you Lesson Builder and what it looks like. So first things first, I always like to try to remember to, and I'm trying to teach myself here too, but I always want to put a title on my lesson. Okay. Because otherwise you'll notice it's saving automatically. If I do not give it a title, it's just going to save as untitled. And that's going to be really tricky to find later on when I'm searching for it to use with my students. So definitely start by giving it a title straight away. And then here you'll notice, well, you'll notice maybe a lot of things. There's a lot going on here. So at the bottom we have card notes, and this might look kind of PowerPoint-esque to you. And so these would be notes that you would just put here for your own benefit as you're going through the lesson, but I'm actually going to collapse that down just to afford myself a little bit more space. Here you have a whole range of tools. Some of these might be familiar to you from the Instant Whiteboard session. Actually, over here on the very most right, if I click on that little eye, show icon and text, that will actually give me the names of all the tools. So I find that to be handy, especially if you're new to Lesson Builder. If you hover over them, of course, it will also show you what they are, but I think that it's just a little bit more helpful. And I do want to mention a few other things. So if you want to add more, these are your cards over here. Down at the very bottom left, I can select Add Card. And I can add as many cards as I want to my lesson. And this Insert button is very handy as well. So over here on the left-hand side, it looks like a file folder. If I select Insert, I can add different types of things. So I can add items that are already in my resources. So if I have images or even activities, I can add those. If I select this drop-down menu here from my resources, I can also pull from the ClassFlow resource pack, or I can even search for Bing images, YouTube videos, and websites right here. So if I wanted to maybe I want to embed the NASA website and have my students be able to go and investigate or do some research on their own, I can always insert that into my lesson. It might take just a minute to load here. With videos and websites, they may not be active here while you're in the Lesson Builder. So my trick for that, or my recommendation, would be to go to Preview. So when you go to Preview, you'll be able to see what it will really be like with your students. So you won't actually be able to play a video there in the Lesson Builder, but if you go to Preview, then you'll be able to see it. So let me actually add that. I want to add from my resources. Let's add that activity that I just sent to you all. Maybe I want to put that into my lesson. So you can really add, as you can see, many different types of media to your lesson. You can put images, videos, websites. You can even link to Google Docs, or you can put Word documents or PDFs within your lesson, and you can really customize them and make them as robust as you want them to be. So, and again here, I could go to preview and see what this would really be like when I go to play it with my students. So. Within Lesson Builder, all the changes are being saved automatically, but you can always click on the ClassFlow menu, also known as hamburger, over here, and you can save it manually. And then you can make even more changes. You can apply themes. So if you want to get fancy and really snazz up your lesson, you can change the card size depending on which resolution would work best for your device, and so on. And you can save there. So that's just a little bit of Lesson Builder. You'll notice too, I can also, if I'm putting the finishing touches on something, I can select up here and deliver it to my students. So it's yet another way that I can deliver content to my students very easily. Okay, so I just had one other item that I wanted to show you. Let me exit out of this lesson here. I also wanted to show you that if you have, there's my lesson, I just started creating it. Anything that you have here within your resources, you can also select Deliver, and then you can send that content to your students this way as well. So if I have an activity that I've made, or even just this instant whiteboard session when we were doing our warm-up, I can deliver things to students this way as well. So you've seen a whole bunch of different ways that you can send content to students once you've connected with them. And again, you would do that here with Open Class. Or if you've created other classes, then you can select Change Class, and maybe let's say that it's astronomy class time and I want to send things to my astronomy students. I can connect with that class as well. So it's important to be sure that you're sending content to the right students, especially if you've already created classes. But again, Open Class is always available to you. So we've really found that our most successful ClassFlow users are the ones that deliver a lesson or an activity, that they deliver something to their students within the first 2 weeks of ClassFlow training, even if it's just sending a poll, even if it's just doing an instant whiteboard. So you've seen there are a number of different ways that you can deliver to students. You can do that from the marketplace, you can do it from resources, you can do it from Lesson Builder. So I would encourage you, as soon as you can, to try connecting your students. I know it's taking a big leap and you're really putting yourself out there, but try sending something to them. I think they're really going to enjoy it, and I think that they'll appreciate that you're maybe trying something new, and they'll be excited about this new technology as well. Okay, so just a few other items that I wanted to mention. We have some more webinars coming up. Let me actually find that lesson. Hey, as I'm finding this lesson, let me check in with Ed one last time and just find if there are any questions coming through on the chat or Q&A.
Nope, no further questions, Courtney, but just as a reminder, we'll hang on after Courtney finishes up to take any kind of last-minute questions before we end today's event.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ed. So we know that you are aware of our ClassFlow webinars because you found this one. So we have a few more UK webinars coming up. We have one called the new interactive poll results viewer. So you may have noticed when I was sending the polls, I could manipulate those results, move them around, change colors, and there are a lot of other things that you can do with those results that we didn't even dig into today. So join us on November 1st. For that webinar. We also have one about creating ClassFlow lessons. I gave you just a tiny little taste of Lesson Builder. So join us and we'll go more in depth with that particular webinar. Please don't forget that we are here for you, and we have a whole team of people at ClassFlow solely dedicated to helping you. So you've got that drop-down arrow that I showed you in the top right corner of your screen, and you can get help articles, help videos, and also the question mark will put you in touch with a real live member of our support team. So please don't hesitate. I know a lot of times as teachers, we maybe are a little reluctant to ask questions, or we fancy ourselves to be experts in everything, but please ask questions if you have them. We're here for you. And lastly, like Ed said, we will stay on the line a little while if you have any questions. But thank you so much again for attending today. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you have a marvelous time using ClassFlow. Thank you. Okay, everyone. Well, if there are no further questions at this time, I believe we will call it a day. So thank you again for attending, and enjoy using ClassFlow.